Trump has been blowing through the constitutional checks on his power more rapidly with each passing day. In just the last week, we learned that Trump is reportedly demanding that the Justice Department pay him nearly $250 million at the expense of American taxpayers. We saw him illegally fire yet another independent government watchdog without notifying Congress. We're seeing him allow the Pentagon to restrict the way staff and personnel engage with Congress, which is completely insane. And just today, we learned that Trump carried out his eighth extrajudicial strike on a boat that he claimed, without evidence, was smuggling drugs. No trial, no investigation, no attempt by the Coast Guard to intervene, just summarily executing people, whether they're guilty or not, because Trump said so. And as if any of that was too subtle, which it definitely is not, this week Trump began literally tearing apart the physical foundations of the executive branch, demolishing the historic East Wing of the White House. We learned today that the whole East Wing will be demolished entirely, without consultation with any review agency, without consultation with the American people, and against even his own promise not to do exactly this. Now, to me personally, this is an absolute gut punch, not just because of the history of the building, of which there is a lot, and the hundreds of thousands of guests who have visited what should always be known as the People's House, and walked down the long hallway looking at the photos of former presidents and their families and their pets, and peered into the old movie theater that was there too. But because Donald Trump is only doing this because he is an insecure man-baby who wants to build a gaudy new ballroom that looks like a gilded event space from his club in Palm Beach to boost his own fragile ego. I mean, look at what he did to the Oval Office. To paraphrase the president himself, nobody in our country has ever seen anything like this. He's going to do whatever he wants, or try to. And the kind of authoritarian power grab we're seeing from Trump right now is an entirely new challenge. So it will require an entirely new response. We know this already. Business as usual is not going to work. Strongly worded letters are not going to work. This moment is going to take new and novel and creative forms of resistance from a broad swath of people to push back on it. That is what elected officials like Jeff Merkley tried to do by holding the floor for 22 hours. And luckily, he's not alone. And I don't just mean Cory Booker doing it a few months ago. I mean, today we saw Governor Gavin Newsom send a clear message on what the National Guard are supposed to be used for, helping their communities. He announced today that he is deploying his state's National Guard not to crack down on peaceful dissent like Trump, but to support local food banks that are seeing a spike in demand after Trump's government shutdown cut access to critical food assistance. Yesterday, we saw Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays sue Congress to stop Trump and his allies from preventing a duly elected Democratic congresswoman from being sworn in to do the job she was elected to do. A case that could be precedent-setting and prevent little Mike Johnson from delaying to swear in future members of Congress just over a year from now after the midterm elections. And we should certainly behave like that's a possibility. Also today, we saw two former deputies to Special Counsel Jack Smith announce that they are not joining law firms that made deals with Trump. Instead, they've started their own law firm where they aim to assist, quote, state and local law enforcers who want to be more aggressive in investigating public officials suspected of abusing their positions for personal gain. Now, each of these are they're powerful acts, but they're small acts in defiance on their own. It's unlikely that any single one of them is going to be a complete game changer to get us out of this mess overnight. But taken together, they start to add up. I mean, taken together, they really matter. And they become real, powerful pushback. And not every action has to be a sweeping, headline-grabbing spectacle either. I mean, not every action has to come from an elected official either. Actually, most of the most powerful ones don't. I mean, in Chicago, where ICE has been going around arresting tamale vendors they suspect of being undocumented, a brigade of cyclists started riding around to tamale vendors across the city and buying up their entire supply of tamales so that those vendors can avoid getting snatched by ICE and still making a living. What a powerful move that is. Another group in Chicago has been passing out whistles to community members so that they can alert their neighbors whenever ICE shows up. In Portland, the city Trump has tried to claim is overrun with violent and dangerous protesters. a couple decided to hold their wedding outside an ice facility with the bride, the groom, and all of the guests dressed in wacky inflatable costumes to demonstrate the joy and whimsy of that city's peaceful demonstrations. Those are memorable photos for sure. I mean, their wedding was a literal protest. Yesterday in North Carolina, people showed up in droves to protest the Trump-backed plan to redraw that state's congressional maps. Protests and activism in Indiana and Missouri have been making it harder for Republicans to go through with their redistricting plans in those states as well. And we're going to talk more about that fight later in the hour, too. In New York's Chinatown, local citizens surrounded ICE agents in an impromptu protest as agents conducted a surprise raid on the neighborhood's street vendors. And of course, this weekend, we saw 7 million people across the country turn out to protest this administration, not just in big cities, but in tons of smaller communities as well. Places like Carbondale, Illinois, and Sturgis, North Dakota, and Paducah, Kentucky, and Waxhaw, North Carolina. On the surface, a protest in those kinds of places may not feel like national news. It may not make national news all the time. But the people there turned out because they knew they were part of something bigger.